Doris Padilla and Ming Yi, who's not here, and we're in PSTAT department. We work on this project about using updated healthcare data to build predictive model on hospital readmission rate. So the first question comes up, what is hospital readmission? Well, don't worry, I'll explain it in a small story. Let's meet Jason. Jason is a student in our school, and this day he's running outside his house, and he suddenly was attacked by a raccoon. And he fell on the ground and starts bleeding so bad. So he immediately ran to the hospital. The doctor checked his arm and gave him some simple treatments and sent him back home with his arm fixed. 2 days later, he got his bill from the hospital. It's $21,000. But luckily, he has bought health insurance. So the insurance company is going to cover him for $20,000. That means he will only need to pay $1,000 on his own. And Jason's happy. 20 days later, this day Jason is cleaning his house, and he suddenly felt something wrong with his broken arm. It starts to get so painful. So he immediately runs to the hospital again. And the doctor checks his arm and says, whoops, your wound has been infected. Sorry. So we have to give you some other treatments, and I have to provide you some antibiotics to deal with that. And they did it, and Jason went back home again. And 2 days later, he got his bill. Still $21,000. But this time, when he's calling the insurance company, they were like, sorry, we're only going to cover you for $5,000. That means Jason needs to pay $16,000 out of his own pocket. That's a lot of money. So now, Jason not only has a broken arm, but also a broken heart. So this is just a broad idea of how hospital readmission work. But in the real life, this is a more common thing that happens to a lot of chronic diseases, such as the cancers and diabetes and so on. So as you can see, the hospital readmission is a wasting of money and time for both patients and the hospitals. So in our lab, we wanted to build a predictive model to predict the hospital readmission rate, so that hopefully we can try to solve this type of problems. So we want to build a model. First problem came up. What indicator we shall use? Well, we have 3 choices. First one is demographic characteristic. That is the most basic information of the patients, like their race, their gender, and age. And the second one is the length of stay. That is just how long does the patient stay in the hospital during the admission time. And the third one, which will be the most important one we're mainly focused on, that is the health status of the patient. It's basically what type of disease does the patient already have before they came to the hospital. And by this indicator, we're using a really useful tool that is called the HCC risk score. So this HCC, it basically gives a code to all the common diseases that people would have and their different severity levels. So this is an example table of the HCC risk score. So I have 2 of them over here, number 1 and 2. So number 1, it represents the HIV and AIDS. And all those numbers back here, they're basically the different severity levels of each disease. And platinum is the least severe in this case, and silver is the highest severity level. And we want to use these HCC risk scores to categorize our patients into 4 big disease groups. And each group will have multiple HCC risk scores. So our 4 groups will be like this. We have cancer group, diabetes, cardiac, and congestive heart failure. I also put the percentage of patients in each group among our entire population. That is 110,000 patients. And as you can see, diabetes, we have the most amount of patients. And for congestive heart failure, we only have 8.4%, that is the least amount. That's because this disease, it technically counts as a cardiac disease, but we want to count it separately because it's too severe. And you will know why in my next following slides. So as you can see, we have a lot of patients over here. And each patient actually has multiple claims. Like our overall total data for claims, we have like over 3 million claims with 5 to 10 different indicators each. And that's a lot of data. And it sounds like a lot of work to do. But it won't be as terrible as it sounds if we can use this special tool called the Markov chain transitional matrix. Well, what is that? I have a really simplified version of our data over here. I have 4 members and their cost levels from 2014 and 2015. So the cost level is basically how much money does the patient spend during their admission time. And I have my markdown over here for low, moderate, and high. So this is actually the real markdown for when we're doing our data. So the high for the high cost is over $70,000, and that's a lot of money. So the next step is I want to plug in information from here into this table. So this table, it has 2 axes. The vertical one, it represents the cost level from 2014, and the horizontal is the cost level from 2015. And the first thing I want to do is to plug in each cost level transition from this table into here. So after I do that, it looks like this. So I have counted the number for each transition. I have 2 people from high to moderate, and then 1 each from low to high and moderate to high. And then I want to find a percentage of each transition among the entire population. So in this case, I have 4 people, that is the total population, and this is the percentage of that. So after you have learned how to read these type of tables and matrix, let me show you our real data. So this is data we got from all our patients. So that's a lot of things going on here, but you only want to look at this one. So this is a column from any other cost levels transitioning into a high cost. That's basically when the cost is getting higher, and we want to compare the situation when the situation is getting worse. And I have this column taken out for all of our 4 disease groups. And let's compare the numbers here. So let's first look at cancer and diabetes group. So you can see these numbers, they're pretty close to each other, and but they're a little bit higher than my all patients. That makes sense because they are a chronic disease, and the people will spend higher than normal people. But if you look at the cardiac group and the heart failure, the situation is not that good. So they are much higher than my all patients, and they're even higher than the cancer and the diabetes group. If you just look at, like for example, for high to high, if you look at the heart failure, it's like 3%, but all patients, I only got like 0.5%. That's like 6 times greater than average. So that means people getting this type of disease, they have much higher probability of transitioning into a high cost. Yeah. And yeah, so what we have done so far. The first thing is to determine our indicator, that is the HCC, and then we build a transitional matrix, and we divided up our HCC into 4 different disease groups, and we want to plug in those numbers into the transitional matrix. So all of these processes we have done, they're actually all counted to like data analysis, but we haven't really gone to like really building the predictive model yet. So that's our next step, which is to apply all these methods we have used onto the hospital readmission rate. And we want to fit that data into a thing called a logistic regression model. So this type of model, it requires our variables to be binary, which means we have 2 choices. In our case, it will be either readmission or non-readmission. And hopefully after that, we can have our predictive model built, and it can be a really useful tool for the hospitals to reduce the hospital readmission rate. So back to our JSON example, if the hospital had our predictive model, they will know, okay, these type of patients, they have much higher chance to come back to come back to the hospital again. So they will provide the antibiotics in the first time Jason came. And that way, Jason will not need to go back again and pay that extra amount of money. So in the end, I just want everyone here to take care of your body and stay healthy, because I did the math. We kind of someone who's not, I didn't put the name here, Simone, Tiffany, and Carly, especially Simone, the best Simone.